know they're going back and forth.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't think they would matter. If he wants to make some money, Floyd want to make some money.
It's not about the number. If it was about the number, we could have started talk. I would have tell you, I'm not just interested. It makes no sense for me. It's not my what I'm looking at right now.
How many of those shots from Francis can you take? Tyson Fury, if you're talking clean, Tyson Fury only took one. Everything else, Tyson was able to roll with. Big Francis only had to hit him one time. Like, that's a compelling story, in my opinion.
Paul and Francis Ngannou might not be the most balanced or logical fight, but it would still attract massive attention and generate huge revenue. He mentioned that the curiosity around who would win makes it an exciting spectacle. Tyson reportedly believes that the unpredictable nature of this fight would easily draw fans from both the boxing and MMA worlds.
Oh, you're such a big MMA fan. You know, I've been to UFC fights and I see you sitting octagon side. I can't help but wonder, if you had gotten into MMA as a young man, as a teenager, instead of boxing, how do you think your career would have went, Mike?
Hey, I had no idea, but I'm really enthused about the MMA, you know, because not thinking, I had no idea that Raphael, who's from a background of MMA, would know so much about boxing. I had no idea. You know, only thing I know about great boxing is the great Ed Joffa, who was a legendary boxer who happened to be Brazilian, but never knowing, not being conscious that he would know that much about boxing.
Do you think you could have learned all the wrestling moves and the takedown defense and could have been a champion in something like the UFC?
I could have done all that stuff. But once someone stepped on my foot, I would have tapped out. My feet are my weak spot.
Ngannou himself says that even offering him a fight with Jake Paul is a complete disrespect to his name and legacy. He explains that Jake hasn't earned the right to share a ring with someone who's been at the top of combat sports. Ngannou adds that this kind of offer is not only insulting, but also shows how far entertainment has
gone. About you to fight Jake to replace Javante, I'm like, who's Jake? You know, like, I was so confused, you know, like, I wasn't expecting that at all. And he said, yeah, Jake Paul, you know, he's fighting. I'm like, no, bro, come on. Don't disrespect me like that. And then they even say like, they even come out after and say, and what if the number are good? He send out some number. I'm like, it's not about the number. If it was about the number, we could have started talk. I would have tell you, I'm not just interested. It makes no sense for me. It's not my
Chael Sonnen reacts to Jake Paul possibly fighting Francis Ngannou with both amusement and curiosity. He says this would be a fascinating matchup, not because it's competitive, but because it would show how durable Jake really is. Sonnen jokes that Tyson Fury, one of the toughest heavyweight champions in the world, was dropped by just one clean shot from Ngannou. If Fury, who outweighs Jake and has years of experience in heavyweight boxing, could barely survive Ngannou's power, then Jake might be in serious danger. Sonnen adds that Jake's confidence and willingness to take on fighters far above his level is entertaining, but facing someone like Francis is an entirely different story. He emphasizes that Jake doesn't have the size, power, or chin of Tyson Fury, and if Fury could only take one punch, it's hard to imagine Jake taking even that.
Tells this story that Nikista's offering him the fight, but he's just not hearing it that way. Like, all right, you said you need help, and you called me, and I'm happy to help you, but you know what is it that I can do? So when Francis finally realizes it, he not only says no, he says he was offended. He said, Jake, you want me to fight Jake? Jake who? He said, Jake Paul. He said, that makes no sense. That's the last thing I would want to do right now. It's the last thing that I'm looking for. And, all right. Now, that is a good and comical story. And I think that Jake Paul deserves a lot of credit for that. I would have really liked if that match would have gotten booked. I mean, I think that would just solve so many problems from a storyline perspective. And there's this story going on out there that and it has to do with courage. Now, how you ever question a combat athlete's courage, I think, is hard. How you ever question a boxer's courage, right? Where you've only got two things you can do, and they're both involved bludgeoning. You can't even grab a hold of the guy or try to squeeze him. You can only bludgeon and be bludgeoned back. I think you're got an uphill battle to question somebody. But they have been very effective in doing just that to Jake. Hey, you start with this NBA guy, and then even those MMA guys, they're not boxers. And then when you got around to the boxers, but they weren't current boxers. Then when you get around to the current boxers, they're not big enough boxers. And I just loved it. When I heard that Francis Ngannou might be going against Jake, I loved it. What's that going to look like? How many of those shots from Francis can you take? Tyson Fury, if you're talking clean, Tyson Fury only took one. Everything else Tyson was able to roll with. Big Francis only had to hit him one time. That's like...
Francis Ngannou is not only heavier, but also vastly more powerful than anyone Jake Paul has ever faced. While Gervonta Davis is a lightweight fighter with explosive speed and timing, Ngannou is a heavyweight built on raw strength and knockout force. Analysts point out that if Jake truly wants to face Francis, he must completely rebuild his training camp. This means not only increasing his muscle mass, but also preparing his body to absorb punches from a man who weighs over 260 pounds. Jake would have to adjust everything, from footwork and endurance drills to his sparring sessions. Fighting a lightweight requires sharp reflexes and movement, but fighting a heavyweight like Ngannou requires durability, balance, and raw strength. Experts say Jake cannot treat this as another influencer boxing event. He would need months of specialized preparation under top boxing coaches.
Something unique. It would be something incredible. It's the same reason that I would be intrigued by a Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua fight, although I would never advise Jake Paul to take a Anthony Joshua fight. I wouldn't advise him to take a Francis Ngannou fight either, because as much as Anthony is far better, which we saw when they actually fought, Joshua slept Francis Ngannou quicker than me after 2 melatonin. I mean, it was quick, fast, in a hurry, completely dominant. But we also saw Francis Ngannou go toe-to-toe with the heavyweight champion of the world at that time. Yes, he was out of shape. We understand that. But Tyson Fury on that night got the shock of his life when Francis Ngannou not only went toe-to-toe, but put him down and danced on him. To this day, I think that fight could have gone Francis's way. Point being, there are levels to this shit. Not just in boxing, but in combat in general. And the size difference Francis would have over Jake would be incredible, but it would have been a great event, and a lot of people would have tuned in. Francis, though, is saying that's not happening.
How can they go from Gervonta Davis to Francis Ngannou? Gervonta Davis is a fantastic boxer, but and is a one-shot knockout artist. But come on, the weight different and everything, it makes no sense.
It's a good point. I mean, obviously, Francis is right about the weight difference, but it's a good point in general for what do you do next? Jake has sparred guys like Shakur Stevenson, Ray Ford, Montana Love to try to prepare for Tank Davis. And even if you book this fight on December 12th or December 19th, that's still a completely different fight than you were going into. Completely different matchup, size-wise, skill-wise, the things that you're going to need to even try to compete if it's someone like a Francis Ngannou or even an Andre Ward or whoever else, not just the fight styles.